To solve this data sufficiency question, we're going to go ahead and consider each statement separately first and then together if needed. Before diving into the statement, let's go ahead and take a look at the question and what it's asking. If d is an integer, is d equal to d cubed? Now, thinking about this equation here, this d equal to d cubed, and thinking about the possible values that this would be true, would be if d is 0, right, because 0 would equal 0 cubed, and they would both be 0. If d is equal to 1, because 1 cubed is still 1. And the only other option is d is negative 1, because negative 1 cubed still gives us a negative 1. But any other value of d, we wouldn't be able to conclude that this is true. So these would be true. The answer would be yes if d is any of these values. If d is not any of those values, then the answer would be no. And if we can't conclude whether d is these values or d is definitely not those values, then we wouldn't be able to answer the question. So let's go ahead and let's dive into each statement first. Let's do statement 1 first. So statement 1 tells us d is less than 1. So thinking about a number line for a second, we have 1 is here, and d is somewhere this way. Now in this range, we have potential values of d, right? Like we have d could be 0, d could be negative 1. D can't be 1 because it's not included in this inequality. But we do have, I guess we should say, that would be like an open hole, right? Since it's not included. So d could be any of these values. It could be these, which would make the answer yes, but it could also be negative 1/2. It could be negative 3, in which case the equation would not be true. So we just don't have enough information, since d could really be kind of any of these, or it could be one of these. We just don't know. And we said it has to be one of these to say yes, it has to not be one of those to say no. So it could be either. So this statement alone is not sufficient, meaning that we can eliminate answer choice A and D, leaving us with B, C, or E, so we have to consider statement 2. For statement 2, we have kind of a similar thing going on, so let's think about a number line. We have 0. And we know that d is less than 0, so d is somewhere over here. Now in this case, we kind of have a similar thing going on as before. It's even more restrictive since we don't have 1 right in our number line, but we do have negative 1 as a possibility. But we're not told that d is negative 1, and we're not told that d is not negative 1. So that means it could be negative 1, but it could also not be negative 1. So a similar logic that it could really be anywhere, we don't really know. And it could satisfy the equation, but it could also not satisfy the equation. So the statement alone is not sufficient. We can eliminate answer choice B. That still leaves us with C and E. So we have to consider both statements together. Let's do that over here, 1 and 2. Now merging these two statements, if we look at these number lines, they actually overlap, and we would have to take the part of the number line that satisfies both inequalities, and that would be the more restrictive inequality. So d less than 0 would satisfy both of these inequalities. So combining the statements, we're really just have that d has to be less than 0. So for our d, it's got to be somewhere over here. And that's no different than statement 2. And we said statement 2 was not sufficient. So since we don't really have any extra information, the statements together are not going to be sufficient either, since it's essentially the same as statement 2 when we combine them. So the two statements together are not sufficient. We can eliminate answer choice C, and the final answer is answer choice E. Statement 1 and 2 together are not sufficient.